A major catastrophe, the inversia, has reshaped the world. The power of existing nations plummeted, while the Integrated Empire Foundation seized control. The event granted some people unique abilities. They're known as the Genestella. A giant metropolis standing atop an artificial island hosts multiple schools to train these individuals. Asterisk City. A new student, Ayato, tries returning a handkerchief he finds, but accidentally sees the owner changing. It's only his first day at the Seidokan Academy, but she challenges him to a duel regardless, introducing herself as Euless Alexia von Heichfeld, a Strega, rank 5 at the academy. He accepts. Whoever destroys the other's school badge wins. She begins the assault, launching multiple attacks utilizing her fire-based abilities. Her confidence falters. He counters everything she throws at him. Suddenly, he tackles her to the ground. Someone is trying to take advantage of the duel and litter her with arrows. The school representative, Claudia, steps in and stops the duel. In her office, she begins explaining to Ayato how the schools on the island all take part in events called festas, tournaments that pit students against one another. He's only interested in his sister and why she disappeared mysteriously after attending Seidokan for 6 months. Her records are all but erased, though her weapon, an ogre lux, the Serveresta, is still in the school's custody. Euless is in the same class, and he tries befriending her. She keeps people at a distance. However, she concedes that she owes him one. Yabuki, another student, and Ayato's new roommate, says that's typical of the princess, which isn't a nickname. She's actually the princess of a difficult-to-pronounce foreign country. Lester, rank 9, a page 1, confronts Euless, challenging her to a duel for fighting a newcomer, but he's already lost 3 times against her. She becomes angry when he claims she fights for fun, telling him off. She's not fighting for the thrill of it. She's determined to win all 3 festas. Ayato has a dream about his sister, Huraka, who tells him to be careful using his power until he finds his purpose in life. Her purpose is to protect him. She smiles when he returns the sentiment. The other day, Ayato stepped in, introducing himself to Lester, who skulks away as Yabuki records the whole thing. Ayato questions why Euless fights. She says it's for the prize money from the Phoenix Festa. Yabuki mentions it's a tag team, wondering if she's found a partner. A little embarrassed, Euless's ideal partner should be a page 1 who fights with honor. Yabuki runs off to take a call, and Ayato asks Euless where the boys' dorm is. He needs someone to show him around the city and uses his favor to get Euless on board. Euless shocks the class, begrudgingly saying good morning back to Ayato. Apparently, she barely ever speaks to anyone. Noticing Saya, a childhood friend, is also in his class, surprises Ayato. Asking about her dad, he finds out he's the reason she's there, to show off the guns he designs. Euless and Saya fight over who should show Ayato around, when Claudia randomly shows up, offering instead, but she's really there to get his signature to check out a weapon the next day. Euless and Saya agree to show Ayato around together, though Saya is directionally challenged and needs the tour as much as he does. The 2 girls begin arguing over Ayato. Before they start a duel, more arrows narrowly miss Euless. Saya tries hitting their assailant, who ends up escaping. The next day, Ayato goes to sign out a weapon. It turns out Lester is trying to check out the Serveresta too, but his compatibility is only 30%. It keeps going down, even into the negatives as he fights the sword. Ogre Lux have a will of their own, according to Claudia. Ayato suddenly has a vision of purple chains, and the Serveresta turns, heading straight for him, trying to break through the barrier. He catches it by the handle and forces the sword to bend to his will. Compatibility, 97%. Claudia asks a favor of him, telling him to come by her place that night. Walking in, he sees her just getting out of the shower. Her room is way nicer than the dorms. Apparently, her status as a page 1 grants her more privileges, like private quarters, than even being the student council president, which is more trouble than it's worth. But she likes trouble. Apparently, students who intended to enter the festa are suffering major injuries, forcing them to withdraw. Lester is the prime suspect, but it doesn't add up. Claudia asks Ayato to keep an eye on Euless since she's been the target of recent attacks. offering him a reward for accepting her request. Ayato gets flustered and runs out of her quarters. The next day, Euless shows him around Asterisk City. There aren't many rules regarding duels, or anything else really. People fight in the streets fairly often, instead of in the arenas scattered throughout. Ayato tells Euless that she might want to be careful and not go out alone or duel anyone for a while. Lester shows up right as he finishes warning her, and Ayato tells him not to implicate himself due to the attacks. They run into a street brawl, but Euless knows it's a setup to make it seem like an accident instead of a targeted attack. One of the thugs from Revolve notices the guy who hired them, and Euless runs after him. Ayato follows, getting his lux destroyed while the attackers escape. Euless invites Ayato over to her quarters that night. Telling him to take off his clothes flusters Ayato. Euless tells him to get his mind out of the gutter. She just wants to sew the tears in his clothes. Apparently, back home, she used to run away and play with the kids at the orphanage after they saved her from some thugs. They're the ones who gave her the handkerchief and taught her to sew. The next morning, Euless receives a letter, distracting her from answering Ayato and greeting him good morning. Claudia asks about it and tells Ayato he's a fool for not realizing that it isn't that Euless doesn't trust him enough to say something, it's that she wants to protect him. With that, he runs after Euless while Claudia throws him the serveresta. Euless arrives at the meeting place detailed in the letter. The one behind the attacks turns out to be Silas Norman, one of Lester's lackeys. He lets slip that Lester isn't one to attack while someone else duels, but only someone watching her and Ayato duel would know that. Lester arrives and demands to know if what he said is true. Silas brought him there to be the fall guy. When he tries attacking Silas, one of the hooded assailants stops his axe with their bare hands. They aren't students, they're puppets controlled by Silas. Lester says it doesn't matter how many he attacks with. Well, how about 128 of them? Euless calls him out for working with Arlequin, the only school capable of producing armor that can withstand her attacks. Knowing that, Silas can't leave her alive. Ayato shows up just in time, apologizing for his tardiness. Euless doesn't need his help, but she has people she needs to protect. So who's going to protect her? It seems Ayato has found his purpose. Ayato has a trick up his sleeve. Asking his celestial bonds to release him suddenly unleashes his true powers, allowing him to figure out that Silas can only move 6 puppets at once. 16 can execute simple patterns, and the rest can only execute basic movements. Like a game of chess. Easily defeating the puppets, Ayato thinks it's over. But Silas has a backup plan. It's huge. The puppet, that is, but still no match for the serveresta. Silas attempts to run. Euless uses her powers to carry Ayato, flying after him. Silas falls to the ground. They leave it to Claudia to deal with him. Ayato screams as the purple chains wrap around his body, and he passes out. He has a flashback to his sister casting a spell. With these celestial shackles, I bind your savage force, telling him she has no choice before disappearing. He comes to in Euless's lap. Trying to apologize, she tells him to stop being an idiot. It's fine. Wondering what those chains were, he explains that his sister's power is binding. Apparently, he can only use his powers for up to 5 minutes. Ayato offers to be her partner in the festa, finding his purpose. She accepts. Claudia finds Silas, brutally attacking him, when Yabuki appears from the shadows. It looks like they're up to something. Another mysterious figure watches, the one who created the puppets. The student council presidents gather for a meeting. They question Claudia about Arlequin and Seidokan's collaboration in developing new technology. The representative from Arlequin asks if it's possible to review their rules surrounding AI and to potentially allow them to compete in the festas. Ayato is late for his training session with Euless and runs right into Kieran, who's also rushing somewhere. Another embarrassing moment with yet another girl. An older man yells at her to hurry up. Euless is annoyed that she still can't beat Ayato in a duel. He manages to last for 3 minutes now, so beating students at Euless's level should be easy. But there are students even stronger than her. They have the edge though. Secrecy. Nobody has seen him go all out. Saya and Lester show up. She accuses Eulis of keeping a monopoly on Ayato, doing unspeakable acts during their one-on-one training sessions, while Lester struggles to keep up his tough guy facade, thanking Ayato for saving him the other day. Claudia enters with 2 students, Camilla and Ernesta, from Arlequin Academy, explaining that they're developing a new type of lux. Eulis figures that the partnership stems from covering up Silas's attack. Ernesta wants to see the swordsman who destroyed her puppets, whispering in Ayato's ear that he won't be so lucky next time. Eulis and Saya lose it when she kisses him on the cheek. Camilla notices Saya's weapons and trash talks her dad and his designs. Saya demands an apology, but Camilla refuses. Ernesta says she'll have to prove her wrong in the festa. So, Saya asks Ayato to be her partner, but Eulis steps in and they fight over him, while Lester walks out, unimpressed. Yabuki explains to Ayato that Arlequin's classes are split between R&D and combat when he sees the older man hitting Kieran, the girl he ran into. Ayato catches his wrist before he hits her again. It turns out he's her uncle. Even still, Ayato asks that he stay his hand. If he can beat Kieran in a duel, then he'll honor his request. Ayato keeps up with Kieran's sword skills, avoiding all of her attacks, which she can't believe. Eulis can't believe he'd be stupid enough to duel the school's rank 1 student, which Ayato can't believe. Kieran's uncle punishes her for not beating him more quickly, telling her to do exactly what he says, that is, if she wants her dreams to come to fruition. Eulis is mad at Ayato, but not for the reason he thinks. She's glad he stood up to Kieran's uncle, but she's angry he didn't beat her. Only 2 students rank above Eulis: Claudia, who can see 10 seconds into the future using her Ogre Lux, and Kieran, who isn't a Strega and uses a real katana. In the rec center, Claudia materializes a new school badge for Ayato from an undisclosed location. Hearing about the duel, she explains that Kieran's uncle is trying to rise through the ranks and sit on the administrative board of the IEF, but board members need to have their ambitions eradicated through psychological conditioning, which might be difficult for someone like him. Ayato finds Kieran looking for him on his way back to the dorms. They recognize each other's ancient sword styles. She's really into swordsmanship, becoming excited talking about it. Ayato asks what she's fighting for. Her father, leaving it at that. Kieran asks to join his training sessions, since her uncle won't let her duel unless he approves. But he needs to ask Eulis first, though he figures that joining his morning sessions so they can spar one-on-one should be fine. Saya ambushes Ayato, demanding to know who that was and why he was talking to her. She wants to know whether he'll be her partner in the festas, but he can't because he promised Eulis, who also interrogates him about his relationship with Kieran. Ernesta and Camilla plan to draw out Ayato's true power. During one of their morning training sessions, Kieran and Ayato get ambushed by synthetic regenerating dinosaur-like quadrupeds. Kieran finds out they can kill them by destroying their core using her prana. Suddenly, a sinkhole opens beneath their feet. They fall into the water below. Kieran can't swim and clings to Ayato, who comments on how huge the underground area is when another synthetic creature attacks. It's pretty much the Loch Ness Monster. Kieran has difficulty locating the core, so Ayato uses the Servaresta. He's never had an Ogre Lux that could withstand his prana and destroys the creature with one strike. Sitting back-to-back in their underwear, Kieran thinks Ayato is in love with Eulis, which he denies, making Kieran inch closer to him, accidentally saying she might have a chance out loud, but quickly dismisses it, embarrassed when Ayato almost hears her. Kieran explains how 5 years ago, her father ended up killing a man who took her hostage, but since he's a Genestella, it wasn't seen as self-defense. Ayato says she doesn't need to follow her uncle's every instruction just to save her father. She should follow her own path. He's certain she can do it on her own. Back above ground, Kieran questions her uncle whether he cares about her or her power. He replies that it's the latter. She finally stands up to him, defending herself. She's going to forge her own path, and her first step is to duel Ayato. Claudia sets up an area for the battle, which is a bit much. Everyone wonders what Ayato's plans are when he reveals he won't be using the server Resta. Both Yabuki and Lester loan him a Lux without any explanation. Kieran goes on the offensive straight away. He can see her sword patterns. In combination, all 49 create the technique, conjoined cranes. She's got him wide open, but he ditches the sword for a spear and throws it at her as a distraction, while pulling out 2 short swords, which he casts away as quickly as the others. Using his hand-to-hand combat techniques, he pins her to the ground, winning the duel. Afterwards, Kieran meets with Ayato, Saya, and Ulyss, asking to join their training sessions. Saya is cool with it, but Ulyss is hesitant. The two start fighting out of jealousy. She's in, but her uncle's banging on the door, also demanding to be let in. He berates her, but Ayato catches his fist. Her uncle threatens to expose the truth surrounding her father when Claudia steps in, using her mother's position as a board member to blackmail him. Meanwhile, at Arlequin, 2 students get wrecked by Ernesta's newest inventions. Saya and Kieran's teamwork during training isn't quite up to snuff. It looks like they need more practice. During lunch, Ayato is asked for an autograph. He's become an overnight sensation for beating the school's rank 1. Apparently, his autograph is being auctioned off. At least it's worth something. Saya finally found a partner for the festa, Kieran. Since their coordination needs work, they decide to strengthen their bond and head to the city to go shopping for a gift for Saya's father. After having trouble finding something, Kieran asks what her father's like. Saya replies that he's basically a mad scientist, giving her the idea to buy a gun that could help with his research. It's Kieran's turn to pick something to do. She asks Saya to teach her how to swim. Left alone in the pool, Kieran crashes into another student, who immediately freaks out and challenges her to a duel. Recognizing her as Seidokan's rank 1, she backs off. But when she makes fun of Kieran for not being able to swim, Saya whips a boogie board at her head. So she challenges Saya instead, who takes her out in one shot. Saya tells Kieran she needs to start sticking up for herself. She needs to be more confident, especially since she was rank number 1. Their bonding pays off at their next training session when they beat Ayato and Ulyss's score. Dirk, the student president of Revolve, requests that Irene, who's in the school's discipline center, basically a prison, destroy Ayato in the Phoenix Festa. At the opening ceremony, Chairman Mesa announces that autonomous machines are now allowed as stand-ins for competitors. Ayato catches the chairman's eye and has a strange feeling. The announcers go over the rules. 256 pairs will fight until the top 32 are determined for the finals. If both team members' school badges break or they lose consciousness, they lose. Ulyss leaves the first match up to Ayato, who makes a show of breaking his chains, winning the match with one swing. They have to maintain a level of secrecy so nobody discovers Ayato's limitations. Ernesta's inventions are revealed. 2 autonomous robots, ARD and RMC. ARD gives their opponents 1 minute to attack them without retaliation, trying to put on a show, when RMC shoots him, reaming him out. Their opponents are no match for the bots. RMC predicts every bullet's trajectory, blocking every shot with her own. As soon as the minute's up, it's over. Saya's dad calls in excitement after watching the bots fight. After analyzing them, he tells her to check customs if she hasn't received the new gun he sent to counter them. Asking Ernesta why he's powerless against RMC, she tells ARD that all men are powerless against women. But in reality, RMC is his limiter. Ayato and Ulyss run to catch Saya and Kieran's first match when they see a crowd watching, surrounding a street fight. It's Irene. Noticing Ayato and Ulyss, she confronts them, but before she can cause any trouble, her little sister Priscilla steps in. Ulyss finds it odd that Irene said her business is with Ayato, not her. It seems she's not there only to fight in the festa. Saya and Kieran's match is decided with one quick slash and a single shot. Saya explains how she's able to use her gun in close quarters while they shower, but Kieran is unable to explain her assets. Saya lets Ayato and Ulyss in without a second thought or an ounce of shame, full Monty. In their next match, Ayato leaves the fighting to Ulyss, dealing with their competition with ease. Afterwards, she awkwardly requests a head pat from Ayato for making lunch, feeling left out since she doesn't get any like Saya and Kieran. During Lester's match against Irene and Priscilla, Gravis Heath's power is on display. It requires the user's blood and practically turns them into a vampire, which is convenient because Priscilla is a regenerative who can replenish her own blood. Claudia congratulates Ayato and tries to take full advantage of their alone time when Kieran calls, worried about Saya, who's lost again. During his search, he finds Priscilla being hassled by some thugs. Thanking him, she mentions Irene is on her way. When she shows up, assuming Ayato is up to something, she almost attacks him, but Priscilla calms her down in time. It turns out that they're up against each other in the finals. Irene confronts Dirk about her sister being attacked, but he couldn't care less. After she leaves, he gets his assistant to do a reading, which predicts the sister's victory and sends her to talk to another school's president. Ayato and Eulis show up to Priscilla's place after receiving a dinner invitation as a thank you for saving her. Irene reveals that she needs money because she owes Dirk a hefty sum, but can't use the winnings from the festa to pay it off. She tells Ayato that her real job is to destroy him, which probably has something to do with his ogre Lux. Now they're even. Priscilla is worried about her sister, who completely changes whenever she wields the Gravis Heath. Ayato remembers Claudia talking about how Ogre Lux can alter their users. When he shows up, he finds her asleep. Upon waking up, she attacks him until he snaps her out of it. Before she tells him anything, she makes him promise to join her team for the next festa. The Ogre Lux she wields shows its users their own death in their dreams. Apparently, Ogre Lux can either have a good or bad personality, and Irene's Gravis Heath is one of the worst. She and her sister were orphans on the run when Dirk showed up and gave her the Gravis Heath, saving them, but also putting her in debt. Irene goes on a rampage the night before and drinks her sister's blood in preparation for the match. Ayato has a plan to counter the weapon. Even if his plan doesn't work, Eulis refuses to lose the match, no matter the cost. Irene isn't holding back either. She's giving it everything she's got, blocking the Servaresta with the Gravis Heath. It turns out it can't cut through everything after all. An Ogre Lux of the same caliber stops the Servaresta in its tracks. They go after Priscilla, but the Gravis Heath isn't all offense. Irene creates a shield around Priscilla, taking the pair by surprise. Ayato targets the Ogre Lux itself, but it's still not enough. Eulis reveals the trap she set, but it's no use. Ayato gets a bad feeling. Irene is gone. The Gravis Heath has completely taken her over. Ayato gets through to her, for a second, to save Priscilla from being completely drained of blood. Suddenly, the Servaresta uses its own will to reach out to Ayato, who knocks the Gravis Heath out of Irene's hands, piercing it into the ground, destroying the Ogre Lux. The match went on too long. Ayato collapses, giving away his secret. The rumors begin to circulate. Will they be able to win at this rate? Their opponents prepare to take advantage of their newfound weakness. Hopefully, they can come up with something and claim victory. Nobody knows what will happen next. Thank you for listening until the end. Subscribe for more videos like this.